to Frequency Matters, the RF and microwave industry update video series. I'm Kristen Anderson, and I'm joined by our technical editor, Gary Lerude. Our publisher, Carl Sheffers, and editor, Pat Hindle, have just returned from some traveling in China, where they attended the IME show, and they have brought back a lot of photos and videos from the exhibition. We wanted you to know that those files are now on the Micrwave Journa website in our media gallery. While they were there, they noticed that it seems as though the trade show activity is picking up in China. So we're all working hard on EDICon to have an even larger presence in Beijing next April. So we did want to tell you now about the November issue, which has just been released. The theme is passive and control components. And Gary, I think you can tell us a little bit about some of the articles we'll read in this issue.
Yes, I'd be happy to. The cover story is Recent Market-Driven Filter Advances. It's a collaboration from 4 companies, including the Microwave Products Group, K&L, BSC, and Pole Zero. And it talks about some of the advances over the last decade in filters, particularly driven by some material and electromagnetic simulation advances. We have a second filter article talking about acoustic filters and their application in mobile devices, things like handsets, where because of the number of frequency bands, a lot of the bands are now adjacent to each other and almost overlap. So the filtering is becoming very critical. And then we have a third article that I think most people will enjoy based on feedback we heard last year when we ran an article on Mobius strips and metamaterials. And that seemed to be a very popular article. Mm-hmm. So we've brought back the authors Ulrich Rode and Ajay Padar, and they're doing a 3-part series. The first one will run in the November issue, and then the other 2 parts in December and January, exploring metamaterials and Mobius strips. And the first series, this one in the November issue, covers Mobius strips and some of the applications. And if you, like me at times, have a hard time wrapping your mind around Mobius strips, I think you'll find this article interesting.
Oh, good.
So what about some of the other things in the issue?
Well, I'd like to tell you about the MVP this month. It goes to a industry-leading signal analyzer by Keysight. Their UXA signal analyzer comes in 3 models up to 26.5 gigahertz. They have a 510 megahertz analysis bandwidth, full band real-time spectrum analyzer, a industry-leading phase noise, also a 14.1-inch touchscreen, and the last thing, it has streamlined user interface. So we can read more about that signal analyzer in the MVP article of our November issue. We feature a couple of other products this month. One is surface mount diplexers with variable crossover attenuation by Amplitech. Also coaxial attenuators, terminations, and adapters by XMA Corporation. In our tech briefs, we cover a block up converter with HPA for K-band. Is that how you say Ka-band?
K-band or K-band, right.
Also 5 megahertz to 40 gigahertz Balun. Right? B-A-L-U-N?
Right, balanced to unbalanced.
Okay, balanced to unbalanced by Hyperlapse. So read about these products when you get your November issue, probably in the coming days, certainly next week. So how about the news? Let's talk about what's new in our industry this week.
So a couple of things I'd like to bring up. One, on the technology front, DARPA and Northrop Grumman were awarded a Guinness World Record for what was called the fastest integrated circuit. I would call it the highest frequency integrated circuit, operating at 1.03 terahertz. This was part of DARPA's terahertz electronics program. And this was a 10-stage common source MMIC amplifier that had 9 dB of gain, believe it or not, at 1.03 terahertz. Fabricated in indium phosphide with 25 nanometer gates, so quite an accomplishment. The other piece of news, more on the business front, RFMD, TriQuint, and Skyworks all announced their quarterly results. All of them recorded quite significant growth in the quarter. Mm-hmm. RFMD was up 15% quarter to quarter, TriQuint 18%, and Skyworks at 22%.
Wow.
And this particular quarter was the end of Skyworks' fiscal year, and for the full year they reported $2.3 billion in revenue. That's the first time someone has crossed the $2 billion threshold from an RF microwave semiconductor standpoint. So that was quite an accomplishment. And of course, the thing that's driving the growth is all of the adoption of cellular technology, particularly the move to 4G. Mm-hmm. And China's a big part of that. China is now One of the operators is offering 4G services. The other two are slated to by the end of the year. And I recently saw a report that forecast there would be somewhere in the range of 300 to 500 million 4G subscribers in China by the end of 2015, which
Wow.
is hard to imagine considering that's more than the population of the United States.
Amazing.
So any news items catch your interest?
Yeah, speaking of China, Huawei has announced their commitment to the University of Surrey's 5G Innovation Center. They call it the 5G IC. So they will work, they will collaborate together to develop the world's first 5G testbed. Huawei has provided their expertise as well as equipment for large-scale radio access for this 5G IC. And they expect this testbed to take just over 1 year to complete, and the building process will be done in 3 phases. So 5G is certainly an important part of what we're talking about here.
Absolutely, yeah. 5G is kind of in a mode where there's a lot of research and development taking place on sort of 2 fronts. One, what can the technology do? But the other side is, what are the use cases? And it appears like, I mean, there are lots of variables that need to be defined, but there are 3 real areas people are talking about. One being the data rate, getting above 1 gigabit per second, maybe up as high as 10 gigabit per second. Associated with that is the latency, so how much time it takes the signal to actually get from one end to the other. And that, they're looking at well below 10 milliseconds, maybe down as much as 1 millisecond, which is very important if you're a gamer.
Yeah, yeah.
Or some real-time applications that they talk about.
Yep.
And then, of course, the third piece of it is the number of connections. There are about 7 billion people in the world, a little bit over that, and they're talking about connections to what we call the Internet of Things that could be upwards of 50 billion connections. And so the network has to be able to comprehend and support all that. So a lot of research taking place. A good thing for us in the microwave industry is you're not going to get 1 gigabit to 10 gigabit per second in the frequency bands that cellular operates today, so 700 megahertz to 3 gigahertz. So people are looking at microwave and millimeter wave bands to provide the bandwidth to do that, and that means there'll be some research going on there.
Yep, and I read in that same article the applications go into healthcare, transport, vehicle telematics,
Right.
and obviously the development of smart cities and entertainment, like you said. So.
Yeah, that's all part of that use case definition that's taking place. A lot
Excellent.
of different opportunities for people to apply the technology
Right.
to different applications.
Right, gotta love speed.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, I do want to tell our viewers as well about some upcoming free webinars.
Yeah.
CST is coming up with a webinar, I think it's next week, certainly within the coming days from the time that you're watching this video, on efficient simulation of optical devices. Also, Rogers Corporation about the same time, so in the coming days actually, essential thermal mechanical concepts needed for today's microwave circuit designs. If by the time you watch this video, you're interested in one of these webinars, they will be in the archive section.
Right.
They do get recorded. So go to events under webinars and check out the archives. In the coming weeks, CST has a couple of webinars on, one, modeling a DDR4 memory channel, the other, modeling material properties. Keysight has a webinar coming up on RF system design, prototype, and production with X parameters in one pass. And also, National Instruments, formerly AWR Corporation, is sponsoring a webinar on RF PCB design. So again, all free and good information. So log in and see if you can get some more information on those.
Yeah, as I've facilitated some of those, I've found them to be really interesting. Good, good tutorial material.
Yep, yep. And some of our presenters come back and they have a following. Some pretty good speakers that do these topics for us. So good.
Excellent.
I think that about wraps up this episode of Frequency Matters. Of course, we'd like to thank our sponsor this month, Mini Circuits, online at minicircuits.com. And we'd like to thank you for watching. We do hope you'll join us again for the next episode of Frequency Matters.